There's a side of goodness no one dares to speak about. We praise kindness, celebrate empathy, and uphold moral purity as the gold standard of human character. But behind the applause lies a forgotten truth. Even light casts a shadow. In The Mirror of the Unconscious, Freud warned, virtue can be a disguise, a polished mask hiding our deepest fears, guilt, or unresolved trauma. And often, the people who try the hardest to be good are the ones most at war with themselves. Why do some people sacrifice their needs endlessly for others? Why does guilt creep in when we say no? Why does being good sometimes feel so exhausting? Because goodness, when weaponized by the ego or molded by repression, can become a prison. In Freudian psychoanalysis, no trait is born in isolation. Every compulsion, every behavior, every belief stems from conflict between the id, our raw impulses, the superego, our inner critic, and the ego, our fragile negotiator. When we deny the id in the name of virtue, we don't erase it. We bury it, but the buried doesn't die, it festers. Today, we'll peel back the layers of what society calls good. We'll explore how it forms, how it can harm you, and most importantly, how to reclaim a balanced, authentic self. Because goodness, when distorted, can be the most dangerous mask of all. This won't be a moral sermon. It'll be an autopsy of the false self, built not on truth, but on fear of rejection, childhood conditioning, and the unconscious need to be loved at any cost. Welcome to the dark side of goodness. Goodness is, it seems so simple: help others, be kind, do the right thing. But the mind doesn't define good with such clarity. In fact, what we often call goodness is a performance shaped by fear, approval, and survival. From birth, the psyche absorbs a blueprint. Parents, religion, teachers, society, they don't just teach us what's right. They reward compliance and punish disobedience. Freud called this process the birth of the superego, the internalized voice of authority, morality, and guilt. It forms in early childhood, shaping what we believe is good and what must be repressed. But here's the truth. Goodness isn't a universal virtue. It's a programmed behavior. A child learns to suppress their anger, deny their desires, and submit to authority, not because it's moral, but because it's safe. Over time, this repression becomes identity. I'm a good boy. I'm a good girl. I'm the responsible one. These roles feel noble, but they're often masks for deeper wounds, a desperate need to feel worthy. Freud believed that the ego builds personas to survive social life. One of the most dangerous is the false self of the good person. On the surface, this person is selfless, patient, and kind. But under that surface lies a mind split in conflict, desires never spoken, anger never expressed, guilt that festers silently. True goodness comes from awareness, from choice, not compulsion. But many people are good because they fear abandonment, punishment, or moral failure. Their kindness is not freedom, it's control. Their virtue is not strength, it's submission. So ask yourself, are you good because you want to be? Or are you good because you were taught that your worth depends on it? The answer reveals everything. When we think of danger, we imagine violence, cruelty, or betrayal. But one of the most dangerous things in life is unchecked goodness. Yes, goodness can become a poison, especially when it's not a conscious choice but a defense mechanism. Shaped by fear, Freud argued that repressed instincts don't disappear, they return distorted. The compulsive good person often lives in quiet torment. Why? Because they've buried their own needs so deeply they've forgotten they exist. The constant self-sacrifice, the inability to say no, the addiction to being liked, it doesn't make them whole, it makes them hollow. This is how goodness becomes self-destruction. Emotional exhaustion. The chronic giver eventually collapses. The kindness becomes expectation, You're drained but still smiling, because to stop would make you feel guilty and to slave to your own morality. Resentment. You help everyone, but no one truly helps you. Slowly, bitterness creeps in, but you suppress it because good people don't get angry. Freud would call this the return of the repressed aggression, now turned inward, as depression, anxiety, or self-harm. Loss of identity. You don't know who you are without the role of helper, healer, or savior. You become a mirror of others' needs. The real self, forgotten. Freud warned of the danger of the ego dissolving into the superego, living only to please. Enabling toxicity. Your goodness becomes a tool for others. Manipulators love the overly kind. They know you won't fight back. You stay in abusive friendships, toxic workplaces, or one-sided love because you fear the guilt of leaving. Moral rigidity. When goodness becomes dogma, compassion dies. You judge others harshly, suppress your own darkness, and live in denial. Freud saw this as reaction formation, where the mind adopts extreme goodness to hide inner chaos. So while the world praises the good ones, many are quietly breaking. Because a life of unchosen goodness is a life of invisible suffering. To free yourself from the trap of compulsive goodness, you must begin where Freud always began, the unconscious. Healing doesn't come from doing more good. It comes from asking, why do I need to be good so badly? You see, many of us confuse morality with survival. We became good not by choice, but by conditioning. As children, we learned that love was conditional. Be quiet, be helpful, don't cause trouble. This inner child still whispers, if you stop being good, you'll be abandoned. Freud called this the superego's tyranny, the internalized parent that punishes you with guilt, even when no one else is watching. To overcome, begin with honest self-exploration. Acknowledge your shadow. Freud believed that the psyche contains both light and darkness, and to be whole, you must accept both. The parts of you that get angry, selfish, jealous, they are not evil, they are human. Write down what you suppress. Name the emotions you fear. Integration begins with honesty. Set boundaries without guilt. Every time you say no to something that drains you, you say yes to your self-worth. Goodness is only virtuous when it's freely given, not extracted. Freud would remind us that repression leads to neurosis. So speak your truth before your silence becomes a symptom. Reclaim selfishness. There is a form of selfishness that is not cruelty, but survival. Taking care of your needs, prioritizing your mental health, walking away from toxic people. This is not moral failure. This is maturity. As Freud said, love and work are the cornerstones of our humanness. You cannot love or work well if you're constantly depleted. Question the need to be liked. Behind many acts of goodness is a secret hunger. Please accept me, recognize it, then let go of it. Not everyone needs to like you. Your worth is not in their hands. The more you detach from this addiction, the more your actions become authentic. Choose goodness, don't obey it. There is a difference between being good and being obedient. Freud's work reminds us that freedom lies in awareness. The moment you consciously choose to help without compulsion or guilt, you reclaim your power. That is true goodness, not from fear, but from clarity. So begin, not by being better, but by being more honest, more whole, and more free. Goodness is not the absence of darkness, it's the courage to walk with it. So now you've seen it. What was once a halo can become a chain. Goodness, unchecked and unconscious, can quietly turn into a form of self-erasure. Freud warned us that the psyche is never as simple as it seems. Even our noblest acts may be rooted in fear, guilt, or repressed desire. But this is not a call to abandon goodness. It is a call to liberate it. Freud taught that the human mind is a battlefield between the id, the ego, and the superego. The id wants pleasure, the superego demands virtue, and the ego tries to navigate both. A life lived only for the superego, for duty, rules, and external approval, is not balanced. It is repressed. And what is repressed does not disappear. It returns, distorted, in anxiety, resentment, or depression. The antidote is not rebellion. It's not about becoming bad. It's about becoming whole. You overcome the dark side of goodness by embracing the paradox. To truly be good, you must allow yourself the freedom not to be. To be virtuous, you must first be honest with your needs, your anger, your imperfections. As Carl Jung, Freud's most famous dissenter, said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be real. As you go forward, let this be your guide. When you give, ask yourself, am I giving from fullness or fear? When you say yes, ask, what part of me is afraid to say no? When you feel guilty, ask, whose voice is this really? This is not selfish. It is self-ownership. Freud believed that through introspection and awareness, we could transform blind patterns into conscious choices. And that is your task now, to reclaim your goodness, not as an obligation, but as a powerful, deliberate act of freedom in a world that constantly tells you to be more, give more, and feel less. Dare to pause, dare to ask why, and dare to choose a goodness that begins with you, because the true danger is not in being bad, it's in never asking. Who you became in the name of being good